Hi guys, welcome back to Those Without Names. Yuki here. Yeah, we just went through like an hour of this. We're gonna see the other portion. I honestly have no clue how long this is, but or how it's gonna end up, but we'll just see as we go on. Seven had her awakening. I saw her as I walked down the hall and immediately knew the moment I saw her face. One of her eyes was clear instead of the dark shadow look everyone else had. Her eye was bright and alert. Did she only have one eye? She saw me and smiled. Hello, 8. I swallowed hard as I walked up. You're awake. Soon I want to thank you. Me? I looked at her in confusion and she patted my head gently. It's all thanks to you that I can finally let go. What do you mean? She was fading in front of me, but not in the same way as when she was going under a memory. She was turning into light. My throat tightened as I watched her body break into small, bright particles and float up into the air. This time I knew I wouldn't see her again. I've realized my children are not alone, even if I'm not around. They have each other to lean on, just like you and Zero. They lend each other their strength. I know that now. That's why I can't rest easy. That's why I can rest easy. Thank you, 8. Wait, 7! Tears burned my eyes as she took my hand gently. It's time for me to go, but I want you to know my name. My name is Mei-Ling. Mei-Ling smiled, her happiness glowing on her face. She was so transparent that I couldn't focus on her outline anymore. I have to go. Goodbye, 8. A burst of light particles later, she was gone. What a great way to start this, all depressed. I told my brother, who told 13. 13 was ecstatic. God, I can't wait to wake too. I hope I'm next. This place is great and all, but I want to leave as soon as possible, you get me? Yeah. My brother answered, but he didn't sound like he was listening to 13. Instead, he seemed deep in thought. 13 rolled his eyes and faced me. He's spacing out. How about you? Can't wait to wake either, right? I didn't answer. All I could think about was Mei-Ling disappearing into light, floating high and away. I thought about the crinkles in her eyes when she smiled, the ones that reminded me of Crofi. I thought of the sound of her knitting needles as I dozed in her room. I looked at my brother and tried to imagine him turning into light too. What? Man, why'd you two clam up all of a sudden? He sighed and gave up, throwing himself onto the studio couch. I just want to leave. You can wait for almost anything except the things you really want. Can't taste a thing, can't feel a thing, can't do anything interesting. It drives you mad. You just keep rewinding through your life over and over until you remember your name. If you ever do, that's no way to live. I ain't interested in reliving something I've already been through once. I want to make new memories, not look at old ones. I want to really live, you know. I can't be stuck here forever. His voice floated after me, listing his complaints as I left the studio. My brother joined me later outside. He sat down behind me and leaned his back against mine. You okay? I tugged at the grass beneath my feet. I miss her. Who, 7? Mei-Ling. We were silent for a while, me pulling up grass that kept growing back and him leaning against me to look at the sky. You two are pretty close, considering how hard you find it to talk to strangers. She was nice. She didn't talk much. She listened. Sometimes we talked, and it felt okay. But the surprising thing is, even if we didn't talk She reminded me of home. My brother didn't speak. I sniffed a little and rubbed my nose with my sleeve. I miss Mom and Dad. It was a while before I heard my brother's reply. Me too. In the darkness of a tiny, cold hospital room, I saw my brother's small back. He faced our grandfather, wizened and wasting away in front of us. His back was oddly straight and stiff. We were children then. It was the first time either of us faced what dying meant. It didn't feel real. My grandpa was portly and round, red-faced and smiling. He had a laugh that reminded me of firecrackers going off. He had a smile that matched the sun. He didn't sleep in dark, cold rooms. He didn't have wires and tubes stuck into his hands and throat. He didn't need machines to help him breathe and eat to live. The pale, thin, gasping body wasn't my grandpa. I didn't recognize the shadow of a person. I couldn't bring myself to look at this man who was our grandfather and not my grandpa. I pretended to look at the bags and the tubes hanging on the side of the bed, too afraid to look. But my brother was different from me. He faced our grandfather, tight-lipped but unwavering as he held out a clawed-veined hand and was too afraid to reach for. His eyes never left our grandfather's face. He was afraid too, but even more than that, he hated turning his eyes away from the truth. I think we're dead. His words cut into me, and I swallowed the heavy feeling of dread in my throat. He knew I hated the topic of death. It had always scared me. I think that scares everyone. Like, the feeling of unknown and what happens after, like, it's scary. You're wrong, we're just dreaming. His eyes didn't waver. He stared straight at me, his expression serious and fierce. I wanted to look away, but I didn't want to back down. Backing down would be You don't understand. This isn't a dream. It's too messed up to be a dream. Don't you see? This place is holding us here. We're not waking up. We will. We just have to remember. Then we can wake and leave. What does waking even mean here, sis? It just means leaving this place. It doesn't mean we're going to really wake up. We stared at each other. Neither of us wanted to back down. I could hear the frustration in his voice, and I knew he was reaching for something. Do you remember when I asked him why he thought it was working? All your reasons also were in the places for the dead. A sharp, cold So where do you think we are? Still, my brother didn't look like he would budge anytime soon. If he's so adamant about this, he must have a good reason. My brother wouldn't say things like this to scare me for nothing. He really believes he's right. If you think this isn't a dream and we're dead, then what do you think this place is? My brother looked at the earth, just like always. It hovered over us as he was watching, waiting. I don't know. It's not heaven. It's too lonely to be such a place. It hides and takes too much from me. Maybe it's a place between the living and the dead. I swear to God. Waking is really not. He paused for a moment, his gaze leveling in the earth. Something on the feeling a strange sense of dread, I waited for him to speak. Whatever it was, it didn't look easy to say. What if he has all those memories and he's going to fade too? And then we're going to be all by ourselves and we're not going to know what to do. We're going to be alone. Because we won't want to admit that we're actually dead. I've been having weird dreams. It's not the same as the memories. It feels like dreaming because I don't remember it happening. But I die in this dream. At first I couldn't see anything, but the second time I saw it, the dream feel more vivid. I wasn't sure if of it at first, but now I am. I was dying in that dream. The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I remembered my nightmare, the memory that I didn't remember, the one that wasn't mine. I didn't know my brother was seeing them too. How long have you been having these dreams? A while now. Why haven't you told me? Because I'll scare you. Things like this always scare you. He paused, looking back at me. I think I'm dead, sis. My stomach dropped, and a cold feeling filled my insides. My brother's voice sounded so small, and all of a sudden I knew he was just as frightened as me. He brought this up with me for a reason, even if he knew it would scare me. He was scared too. He wanted to disprove him. He wanted me to disprove him and dispel all of his worries. He fought against me as much as he could because somewhere inside he hoped I would still be able to convince him that he was wrong. It was a terribly heavy burden for me to bear. This place took more than just my name from me. It took the memories that made me what I am, what I used to be, and now it feels like it's taking more. I can't stand it. I hate this place, but the worst part is never going to be able to leave. I quietly took his hand and he squeezed my hand in his, looking away from me. I kept my face turned to the side, knowing he didn't want me to see him cry. We'll wake up soon. He snorted half-heartedly as he wiped his face, and I squeezed his hand back. You'll see, we'll definitely leave this place. The first time I wasn't hit wasn't meant for me. The first time I was hit wasn't meant for me. Spare the rod and spoil the child. Our dad was a believer of that phrase. He didn't believe in hitting girls, however, so my punishment was the closet. My brother was the one who was beaten. More often than not, we were punished during study time. If we didn't understand anything, Dad would try to teach us. If we still didn't understand, he called us lazy, and if that didn't work, he'll lock me up in the closet. He'll beat my brother. Man, this is so heavy. This is so horrible. He thought if we just tried harder, we wouldn't be having any problems. Dad had problems managing his anger. Sometimes he hit my brother a little too hard. Sometimes he left me in the closet longer. We hated being taught by him. My brother's weakest subject was math. He got beaten a lot for not understanding. He tried, but it just wasn't enough. He wasn't trying hard enough, Dad would say to Mom. He was lazy. So when my brother brought home his first failed math quiz, Dad hit him. Maybe he thought pain would motivate my brother to work harder. Fear would make him try harder. All I knew was that Dad didn't stop beating my brother. I don't know why I jumped in between them. I hugged my brother's hunched body for dear life as Dad tried to hit him around me. He missed and hit me instead. It hurt a lot. Dad lost his temper and he was hitting a little too hard, but it didn't stop me from holding on to my brother. I had to protect him. This was my brother's nightmare just as much as the closet was mine. I had to protect him. When Mom finally stopped Dad, I let go, tears streaming down my face from the stinging pain. I patted my brother's head as he cried. My brother was always there for me when I was in the closet. That day I realized I could be there for him too. My brother was at his limit. He couldn't calm down and always looked agitated at something. Even being in the studio didn't help him anymore. There was nothing 13 or I could do. We understood, so we just watched. When 13 hid behind his jokes and I hid behind my silence, my brother couldn't contain his frustration. My brother wasn't the type to hide. He paced restlessly around the hill. He paced in the building. There wasn't anywhere else to go, but he didn't want to stop. He was just too afraid of stopping. 13 took to keeping me company in his place. I promised your brother to keep you company wherever he's gone, and he's never been as far as he is now. He tried a joke to cheer me up, and I forced a smile. I may be losing my brother, but 13 was losing a friend too. He's having nightmares. 13 nodded as he absently strummed the guitar. I know, weird, huh? I thought all you see here are memories. Have you had a nightmare yet? No, just memories. Real boring stuff, because nothing ever happens. He strummed the guitar again. I wished he wouldn't. The sound was jarring in the empty studio. But as much as I loved silence, 13 loved sound. It was as though he needed to be constantly surrounded by noise to keep the silence out. So I simply listened as he strummed a few chords. I tried talking to him, but he didn't seem to be in the mood for it. Maybe he just wants to be alone. 13 laughed, sounding sad. Oh. No, he doesn't. You already know. You're already alone in this place. It can't get much worse than this. He looked at me, his eyes completely serious. He needs you, 8. He just won't say it. That's all. You're the only one he has left, just like it is for you. With 13's words in my mind, I went looking for my brother. He was staring up the earth again. I wonder if it was because he just wanted to go home, and that was where he thought home was. I stood beside him and looked up at the earth too. Beautiful, frightening, nostalgic. Home. The nightmares are getting worse. He sounded broken, quiet. This time it was my turn to be his strength. What did you dream about? I wish I knew. Things happened too fast. There was a lot of noise. I panicked. I tried to move, but it was so blindingly bright. Then there was only darkness. He paused for a moment, and then he spoke. His voice came out choked. My last thought was always that I needed to protect you. I took a deep breath, squeezing my fingers tightly. My brother needed me to stay strong, so I didn't speak. I think I failed. I think that's my regret. That I failed you. I just wish I knew why I couldn't protect you. I wish I remembered. He drew a shuddering breath, covering his face with his hand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I believe you. You don't have to worry about protecting me anymore. You have nothing to be sorry about. I don't know. I don't know. You have nothing to be sorry about. My brother was blaming himself. It was painful to watch, especially since it was about me. I wanted to ease his pain, even if it was just a little. Hey, come on. You said you don't remember this happening, right? It was just a nightmare. You don't have to apologize for something that didn't happen. He rubbed his eyes, trying to stop himself from shaking. Yeah, maybe. He let out his breath, looking at me. His eyes seemed lonely as he forced a smile. Forget it. Sorry. We stood in silence for a while, gazing up at the earth. I still glanced at my brother's profile. He seemed calmer now, but also distant. I failed. I suddenly felt lonely. I didn't understand why I knew, but he was beginning to move forward with or without me. This was the last time we were going to be standing together like this, looking up at the same sky. No. After the divorce, our dad chose to live in the countryside. He used to live on a farm and he missed the wide open spaces. Every second week, my brother and I went to live with him. I liked the wide open spaces too. I liked that it was quiet and there weren't many people around. But my brother hated it for the same reasons I loved it. My brother chose a college 2 hours away, just so he didn't have to come live at our dad's house. He worked a part-time job and lived in a dorm instead, in the middle of the city. We rarely talked to each other after that. There was always the internet, and sometimes we texted each other, but it wasn't the same. The distance between us just was more than just physical space. We were growing apart too. I was told that this was happening. This is something that happened naturally to everyone, something that couldn't be helped. I just didn't realize it would happen to us too. I missed him. It was late at night. I don't remember why, but it was late coming home. The trains had stopped running. I took the last bus out to the countryside where it left me standing alone in the last stop. I was supposed to take the final bus there that went to my dad's house, but it was already stopped a long time ago. The distance from the stop to my dad's house was far too long to walk. I called my dad, but he was out working the night shift. It was just me and the stars. I looked up at them and felt so small and so terribly alone. I texted my brother and told him I missed the bus. He called back immediately. Why isn't Dad picking you up? He's working the night shift. I hadn't heard his voice in so long. We hadn't talked in half a year. The phone warped his voice and he sounded strange and distant, yet so familiar. All of a sudden my throat squeezed and I couldn't speak. My brother misunderstood. He thought I was calling for help. Wait for me, I'll be there soon. It was an hour's drive to where I was from his college. He drove as fast as he could as he reached me in 40 minutes. He should have had his phone on at least. My brother complained as soon as I got into his car. He tapped the steering wheel with his fingers, angry on my behalf. Thanks for coming. I meant it. He glanced over at me and released the parking brake. You were about to cry. I couldn't just leave you here. It was an hour's ride back to Dad's home. We drove down the lonely country road, no other signs of life than my brother's car. That's why when the accident happened, there was no one around to help. I remembered now. This is my memory all along. It wasn't my brother's fault. He sped to me that night, but he was always a careful driver. My mom and I were easily frightened in cars, and since he was the one to drive us, he learned how to drive carefully. It was the truck that smashed into us. The road home was long and deserted. The truck drivers drove by sometimes, especially late at night. There was a bend in the road around the side of a cliff. The truck driver was driving too fast as he turned, and he lost control. There was a piercing bright light and the loud wail of a horn. My brother swerved sharply. Then the world turned over. He tried to save me. The driver's side of my brother's car took most of the damage, and he was nearly flattened. My brother was already gone when I came to. I couldn't believe it. I wouldn't. I called his name over and over, wanting him to open his eyes. His name tore soundlessly through my throat, until finally the words came. Leo! Leo, please wake up! Each word tore out of my throat. I tasted blood and tears. My entire body screamed in pain. The car was turned over and the walls were pushed in. I was trapped. My arms and legs were pinned. I couldn't feel one of my legs. Leo! I kept calling his name, wishing he would wake up. He couldn't be gone. He was alive just a few seconds ago. We were talking. He was here. Help! Someone! I cried. Then, I cried then. I couldn't breathe. I wanted Leo to wake up. Please, just wake up. Please! The smell of gas and sweat filled the air, suffocating me. There was so much fluid leaking out of his body, and he wasn't waking up. Please wake up. You're just here. Leo, please don't leave. Don't leave me. My voice was choked up. I could not let him stop. It was me. I wanted to so desperately to leave. We rushed to my home. I thought I was alone. My brother, who tried to save me in the split second before we crashed, he left me alone in the crushed remains of the car. The walls were too close. They were pinning me down, and I was struggling so hard just to breathe, but I couldn't. I coughed, choking on something warm and held. My consciousness blurred in agony. Help! Someone help! Please help! I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Please, I don't want to die. My struggling became more frantic. Things came down and choked me. I could hear the life breathing out of me. Please, I don't want to die. Darkness was sleeping into my eyes. I couldn't see. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever experienced. And just like my name, my life snuffed out slowly like a dying ember. It was my memory. This was how I died. I didn't want to die. This was the last thought in my mind, the last wish I made with all of my heart. I didn't want to die. I wasn't ready to die. So I held myself back from moving on, no longer alive but unable to die from my own wish. I opened my eyes. I felt more awake than I had ever in a long time. It was time for me to go. I needed to let go of that earth hanging close enough to feel real, not too far away from the beach. A voice told me, and I turned around. I saw Leo with her hands coming to me. Leo, you and we turned to him. So that's what your names are, Leo, Pepper. I'm glad we got to meet. Despite his grin, I could see the loneliness in 13's face. I exchanged a knowing look with Leo, and we both hugged 13 on cue. It was fun. Start waking up too. Don't take too long. I won't. I'll catch up. You'll see. We let go of him, two brightly glowing bodies next to his. 13 watched as we started to disappear. Leo took my hand in his, and I met his eyes. Ready for the other side? He was always the brave one, just like his name, that he was so proud of. I smiled. Ready when you come. Acceptance end, moving forward. I don't accept this, but I do. I'm so sad. No. So depressing. But that concludes those without names. This is really sad, but it was good. Playthroughs if I can handle going through this pain again. Man, my heart and my eyes, and I'm just gonna go in a fetal position and just cry. But thank you so much for watching, and